elderly couple kidnaps a pregnant woman, but not for ransom, not for revenge. No, they want to reverse death itself and bring back their dead grandson by putting his soul inside her unborn baby. Sweet, right? Until you remember, this isn't a fairy tale. This is black magic, where every wish comes with something hungry. Hi, I'm Mila. Let's dive into this twisted horror story that proves some grandparents will do anything for their family, even if it means summoning hell into their living room. One day, this woman, she wanted to show something to this man. Audrey brought out an old, worn-looking book, the kind that smells like it's been sitting in a creepy attic for 50 years. She dripped her own blood onto a dead bird and began reading an incantation from the pages. And suddenly, the bird came back to life. Turns out, they weren't just doing this for fun. They were searching for a way to bring back their grandson. And so, they began planning their mission to resurrect him. Because apparently, in their family, Grandma's love means literally bringing you back from the dead. Later, in the examination room, Henry met this woman for the first time. She was there for an abdominal checkup. Henry told Shannon that she was pregnant, but Shannon's face didn't light up. Instead, she looked troubled. It turned out she didn't want to be pregnant at all, and to make things even worse, she didn't even know the name of the baby's father. When Henry learned that Shannon had no desire to keep the baby and that her family lived far away, he decided she was the perfect person for his plan. So, Henry began quietly observing Shannon's daily habits and soon discovered that she often walked right past his house. A few days later, the couple was chatting casually in their home. Then, Audrey heard Shannon walking past the house and quickly called Henry to follow her. Moments later, they returned, dragging Shannon inside by force in what could only be described as a full-on kidnapping. They took her straight upstairs. When Shannon regained consciousness, she was tied to a bed, her mouth gagged with cloth. Audrey calmly introduced herself to the frightened woman and apologized for scaring her. She explained that she didn't want to hurt Shannon or the baby she was carrying, but she needed her to stay quiet and cooperate. Which is exactly what someone says right before doing something extremely suspicious. They removed the cloth from Shannon's mouth, partly to test their so-called soundproof room, and sure enough, not a single sound escaped, even when Shannon screamed like she was about to give birth right then and there. When Shannon demanded to know why they were doing this to her, Audrey calmly explained that they wanted to bring their grandson back, and this was the only way. That's when Shannon noticed a little boy playing nearby. Except this kid wasn't alive at all. It was the ghost of their grandson. She tried shouting for help again, but the room swallowed every sound. Downstairs, the couple was delighted. Their grandson's spirit had revealed itself to Shannon. Trying to keep things looking normal, Henry left for work as usual. Outside, he spotted a man shoveling snow from the driveway. The man offered to clear Henry's too, but since Shannon was inside, Henry claimed his wife was sick and sent the man away before he could get a peek at the guest upstairs. Henry told the man his wife was sick, then sent him on his way. Inside the house, Audrey was taking surprisingly good care of Shannon, feeding her, giving her water, even prenatal vitamins for her and the baby. But the moment Audrey stepped out, Shannon grabbed her phone and tried to call for help. Too bad, Audrey walked right back in and snatched it away. Turns out the entire house was covered with CCTV cameras. In fact, Audrey had deliberately baited Shannon into using her phone just so she could watch her type in her password. The plan? To post on Shannon's social media, making it look like everything was fine, so no one would suspect she'd been kidnapped. Meanwhile, at the hospital, staff noticed Shannon had missed an appointment that day. When they asked Henry about it, he casually said she had canceled and informed them by email. The problem? They checked. There was no such email. Almost like Henry had just made it up on the spot. After that, they walked to an old building and met this man. Audrey handed him back a book, and together they stepped inside. It turned out they had once asked Ian about that ancient book, the same one that brought the dead bird back to life. They entered a dimly lit room where a small group of people had gathered. What were they doing? A ritual, one devoted to worshiping Lucifer and the kingdom of hell. Not exactly your average Sunday book club. That night, they began the ritual to summon their grandson's spirit and place it inside the unborn baby in Shannon's womb. After dripping their own blood, Audrey recited the incantations from the ancient book. The lights flickered, and Shannon froze, like her mind had just hit pause. Moments later, their grandson's ghost appeared in the room. But as Audrey continued reading from the book, the spirit was suddenly struck by something unseen and vanished. Henry rushed to check on him, but then a strange, twisted creature appeared, its gaze fixed on the baby inside Shannon. It lingered for a moment, then slipped away into the darkness. Henry checked the baby, relieved to find it unharmed, but Audrey was convinced they had already succeeded in placing their grandson's soul inside Shannon's child. The next morning, Henry woke up and saw Audrey standing in front of the mirror. She told him she hadn't been able to sleep all night. A moment later, his phone rang, and when he answered, it was Audrey, asking him for help. So, who was standing in their bedroom? When Henry called out, the woman turned around and slowly walked toward him. Not exactly the kind of morning greeting he was hoping for. Later that day, a detective showed up at Henry's practice, wanting to ask a few questions. He was investigating Shannon's disappearance. Henry, who had planned every detail, calmly answered each question, as if he were talking about the weather, not a kidnapping. At the same time, Audrey heard a knock at her front door. When she opened it, she found a small child covered in a white sheet. He mumbled, "Trick or treat." The classic Halloween line, but since it wasn't even Halloween yet, Audrey wasn't impressed. She just shut the door. She walked back inside, opened the back door, and there he was again. In the next room, another one. Turns out these weren't kids at all. They were spirits. As she tried to run, the elevator in the house started going up on its own. And then
Trick or treat.
Shannon, hearing Audrey's scream, asked what happened, but Audrey kept it to herself. Later, while Audrey was making her a meal, Shannon tried to slip out of her shackles. But instead, she noticed something moving under her bed. It wasn't dust bunnies. It was one of those strange creatures that had made its way into the house, drawn in by the ritual Audrey and Henry performed and by the unborn child growing inside Shannon. Just then, Audrey walked in and the creature charged straight at her. But in an instant, it vanished, like it had somewhere creepier to be. That's when they both realized this was all the result of what they'd done. The next morning, as they relaxed on the balcony, Henry spotted the snow-clearing man out on the street in front of their house. Not wanting him anywhere near the place, Henry went straight down to meet him. He told the man they wouldn't need their snow cleared for another month or two, but the man, clearly desperate for cash, said he was just trying his luck. When Henry refused again, the man offered to do it for free. Henry was about to send him away when, out of nowhere, the man's expression changed. He looked Henry dead in the eye and said, "Jackson's back." And then after that, Henry quickly buried the man and hid his snow-clearing machine. But before he could even catch his breath, the female detective called. She was nearby and wanted to drop by. Panic shot through him. Henry rushed home, heart pounding. Upstairs, Audrey was tending to Shannon when the detective knocked on the door. Moments later, Henry stepped inside, only to see the detective had already forced her way in. Catching Audrey red-handed and pointing her gun straight at Henry after spotting Shannon tied up. But then, just like the snow-clearing man, the female detective suddenly froze, her eyes glazing over before moving as if possessed, and then ending her own life right there. No time for shock. Henry and Audrey dragged her body outside, burying it right beside the snow-clearing man's grave. By now it was clear, Things had spiraled far beyond their control, fear tightening in their chests. They decided there was only one person who might know what to do: Ian, the man who understood dark magic far better than they ever could. A few moments later, Ian arrived. He took the ancient book in his hands, running his fingers over the cracked leather cover. In his words, this was the oldest book in the world. Henry then pointed to the exact incantation Audrey had read during the ritual to summon Jackson. Ian's eyes narrowed as he examined the faded script. He explained that they had made a critical mistake. You can't summon a specific spirit by name. The spell they used was actually calling upon a demon named Surgat, a demon whose power lies in opening the gates between the world of the living and the realm of the tormented dead. In other words, yes, Surgat could indeed bring back a soul, but it was never an exclusive invitation. So when they read that incantation, they weren't just summoning Jackson's soul, they had invited every spirit trapped in purgatory, all to enter the unborn child growing inside Shannon. Ian then went to check on Shannon in her room. After a brief look, he revealed something worse. They had only completed half of the ritual. To finish it, there had to be an exchange. The life of the mother for the life of the child. In return for the ancient book and $10,000, Ian agreed to perform it. Before leaving to prepare, he gave them one more instruction. Spread a ring of salt around Shannon's bed. Salt, he explained, could protect her from evil spirits. But the truth was chilling. The baby inside her wasn't just a child anymore. It was the free ticket for those spirits to be reborn into the world. That night, Henry quietly approached Shannon. His voice trembled as he apologized, because in the next ritual, he would have to kill her. He claimed it was for Audrey's sake. His wife had fallen into despair ever since their child and grandchild died. But for Audrey, this wasn't just about grief. She wanted her grandchild back. Yes, but she also wanted something for herself. Turns out, Henry was basically love-struck to a god-tier level, willing to do anything for her, and then, out of nowhere, the female detective they had buried earlier came back to life, only to kill herself again. The next morning, Ian arrived at Henry's house. He stepped inside, but something followed him in. It was the female detective. Apparently, she'd been doing that all night long. Creepy, right? Then, the ritual began. Ian and Henry scattered dead frogs around the property, while Audrey drew strange symbols on the bedroom floor. Shannon, knowing she was going to be killed, calmly asked Audrey for some food. But the moment Audrey left the room, she unlocked her handcuffs and splashed water on her belly, making it look like her water had broken. Audrey saw the water on Shannon's belly and immediately called Henry. They rushed in, and Ian began chanting from the ancient book. Suddenly, Henry's phone rang. It was someone from Ian's old occult group. They told him Ian once snapped and murdered his own mother. But Henry and Audrey acted like they'd heard nothing, and Ian kept going with the ritual. Then out of nowhere, Shannon grabbed Audrey and held her hostage, demanding Henry untie her. Ian warned him not to, but because Henry was the ultimate simp, he freed Shannon. Enraged, Ian turned and stabbed Audrey. Then Ian slashed his own hand, splattering his blood onto Audrey, and continued the ritual. But suddenly, Shannon stabbed his leg. A grotesque creature appeared, dragging Ian out of the room. Shannon, still lying on the floor, was hunted by another twisted being. Its head wrapped in a greasy old plastic bag, like it came straight from a cursed fried food stall. It lunged, biting toward her pregnant belly again. Henry shouted for it to leave, apologizing to Shannon. She begged him to escape with her, but out of nowhere, a monstrous thing erupted from Henry's body and killed him. Panicked, Shannon tried to flee, only to find the house crawling with horrors. After what felt like endless turns and dead ends, she finally burst out the door and sped away in a car. Yeah, that's how the story ends. Even though Shannon escaped, those creatures were still following her. The lesson here? Love, or anything taken to the extreme, rarely ends well. So for all you hopeless romantics out there, maybe it's time to repent. But that doesn't apply to how I feel about you, my viewers who've subscribed. Without you, I'm like a fried fritter without chili, incomplete and kinda sad. Thanks for watching until the very end. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon so you'll know when my next creepy story drops. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.